this offseason's really starting to pick up. Just a couple days after it was announced he was out of a ride at SHR, Kurt Busch already has himself a new home in the Monster Energy Cup Series. How's it going, everybody? My name is Eric, and welcome once again to Out of the Groove. Remember a year or two ago when this show was once a week? Yeah, those days are long gone. I know I've been uploading a lot of videos lately, but I really appreciate the support. A lot of you guys have left a lot of really awesome comments on those videos, and it's just been a ton of fun, so thank you so much for the support. This thing's going to continue to go throughout the off-season. Yesterday's episode, we talked about Sunday's announcement that Kurt Busch was out of a ride at SHR, a team he'd been with for 5 years. He revealed that he would not be returning to that team in 2019. Most of the reports all suggest he was going to Chip Ganassi, but for months now we have not had confirmation. But today, we finally got that much needed validation.
There's a new number one in town, and I'm taking her to Daytona.
Kurt Busch and Chip Ganassi Racing officially announced today that Busch will be driving the one car for Ganassi in 2019. A move that was initially rumored several months ago, but we never had any surefire report until now, but it's nice to know that former Cup champion Kurt Busch will be at I guess you could say a top tier ride in 2019. Other details of this deal, it's a one-year deal for Kurt Busch, which I'll get into more in a minute, and also Monster Energy, which sponsored Kurt Busch over at SHR, is moving to Chip Ganassi with Busch, so they will be a part-time sponsor on that number one car next year as well. I saw one report that specifically said Monster Energy is expected to bring approximately $5 million worth of sponsorship, which is significant, but it is just a part-time series schedule. Still, good for Ganassi and good for Kurt Busch. Now I'm going to dive into some more details here in this episode, but on the surface, just what does this mean for the teams involved, for everybody involved? For Kurt Busch himself, this is a good deal, I believe. We've seen other, good drivers be kicked out of top rides in recent years and not really be able to find a competitive ride elsewhere. For Kurt Busch, obviously, Chip Ganassi Racing is a downgrade from Stewart-Haas Racing. I've said all year Stewart-Haas Racing was the best team in NASCAR in 2018, and they were kind of primed to do it again next year. But this, going from them to a two-car team with Chip Ganassi Racing, that had kind of a down year this last year, definitely a downgrade for Kurt Busch, but that's still a team that can win races, so not a horrible move. For Stewart-Haas Racing, they will get worse next year by losing Kurt Busch. Not a lot worse. They still have Kevin Harvick, Clint Bowyer, Eric Almirola, and I think Kevin Harvick's veteran presence and experience alone is going to be enough to maintain that team's relevancy, but still, they will get slightly worse in 2019. Chip Ganassi Racing, this is great news. They will probably get better next year. Not only because they've had a year now to work out the Camaro, and with the new aero package might even things up a little bit at some tracks, but Kurt Busch is, he's a better driver than Jamie McMurray. He's an upgrade. No offense to McMurray, he's won races, made the playoffs before, he's won some big races in his career, but Kurt Busch has won more races, he's won a Cup Series championship, the pedigree is there on Kurt Busch's side. It's an upgrade for Ganassi. I expect them to be better. This will improve their team next year. Also bringing on a new sponsor. I know it's kind of just a part-time sponsor, but still bringing in big money from a new outside sponsor is always going to help a team out. Now I want to dive into Kurt Busch's decision a little bit more. If you guys remember, several months ago when it was first reported that Kurt Busch was likely done at SHR and was looking at other teams, Chip Ganassi Racing's name came up pretty much right away. Kurt Busch made a public statement back then that he was looking at two different options for 2019, presumably now Chip Ganassi Racing and something else. Obviously, it turns out he picked Chip Ganassi Racing. There's some speculation around the fact that Ganassi does have involvement in IndyCar. Kurt Busch has run IndyCar races, including the Indy 500 just a few years ago. There's speculation that perhaps this deal could also help Kurt Busch kind of in his life after NASCAR if he does want to run some Indy events, maybe the Indy 500 again. It's also possible that the only other option Kurt Busch had was from like a smaller team. Maybe Front Row Motorsports offered him that third seat that they eventually gave to Matt Tifft. And if you're weighing your options between a team like Front Row Motorsports and a team like Chip Ganassi, probably going to go with Ganassi 9 times out of 10. Needless to say, this is one of the biggest silly season dominoes to fall so far. With this announcement, the only other real high-profile ride we're still waiting on confirmation for is the 41 car that Kurt Busch is now leaving. We've talked this week about how Daniel Suarez is still the leading candidate to get that ride, working out a deal with Eris and with SHR to hopefully go to that 41 next year, but that has still not yet been confirmed. But once that 41 car, once that domino finally falls, I think we'll have ourselves a pretty complete silly season at that point. Definitely one of the craziest silly seasons I can remember, and it looks like now we're starting to finally see the whole puzzle come together and take shape. Now I want to go back real quick to something I mentioned at the beginning. This deal is a 1-year deal between Kurt Busch and Chip Ganassi Racing, and a report I saw from the Associated Press stated that it is believed this will be Kurt Busch's final full-time season in NASCAR. Whoa, don't tell me another superstar is leaving! Well yeah, unfortunately it looks like that could very well be the case. Kurt Busch is 40 years old, still relatively young in his prime, I guess, for a NASCAR driver. Even in this day and age where it feels like drivers are retiring earlier and earlier and earlier. I mean, Junior was, 43? Kenseth was 46. Stewart was like 46. Biffle was like 45, 46. Still, 40 seems a little bit young. But if this report is indeed true, it makes even more sense as to why Kurt Busch might want to work out a deal with Chip Ganassi, again, because of those IndyCar ties. We've seen Kurt Busch, he ran the Indy 500 and the Coke 600 on the same day a few years ago. Clearly, he's got some interest in running in other motorsports, Chip Ganassi Racing having that sort of alliance, and the deal with Monster Energy, if he can continue to make that sponsor happy going forward, can give him more opportunities after NASCAR. This is something we've heard from other drivers recently. Jimmy Johnson, just last week, he did the ride swap with Fernando Alonso from Formula One, and during that event, he stated how he'd like to run some open wheel races, probably in IndyCar, maybe after he's done with NASCAR in a couple of years. And I want to bring this all back to something Brad Keselowski said, I think it was back over the summer, it was months ago, might have even been before the summer, it was right around the time of the All-Star race, the All-Star race package. He said back then, and I keep hearing more and more things that help prove him right, he said then that he believes if NASCAR were to implement something like the All-Star race package, where it's just, restrictor plates at every single track going 170 at Charlotte, he said that if that were to happen, that the top driver talent in the world would no longer want to come to NASCAR, they would look for other motorsports to compete in. Now NASCAR obviously is implementing a new rules change for next year, which is similar to the All-Star race package, but not the same. They're not slowing the cars down as much as they did in that race. It's not going to be quite as flat out. They're not using restrictor plates, but they are using tapered spacers, which kind of have a similar effect. So it's clear to me, and it's been obvious for this whole time, that most of the drivers are not thrilled with the aero package for next year. It's not optimal to most of them. But it seems now that Brad Keselowski continues to be proven correct when he made those statements. Say what you will about Brad Keselowski. I'm not a huge fan, but he was dead on accurate when he made those comments. Because since he's made those comments, we've heard Kyle Larson say that he wants to run full-time in the World of Outlaws before his racing career is done. We've seen Jimmy Johnson do this F1 ride swap, but now he's making comments like he wants to retire in a year or two to go do IndyCar races perhaps. And now Kurt Busch has signed a 1-year deal, seemingly planning to retire a little earlier than expected, possibly, now I'm speculating here, possibly to go run in some other motorsports series just as some one-off events. Now drivers like Kurt Busch, Jimmy Johnson, they are getting older, they are, getting close to the ends of their careers anyways, maybe has nothing to do with the aero package for next year, maybe has nothing to do with Brad Keselowski's comments, but I just like to bring that up because I feel like people forget about him saying that, and I think he deserves some credit because what he said does seem to have some truth to it. I'm not going to get into that whole discussion right now. The aero package for next year is, not a permanent solution. Most everyone is aware of that. But still, I'm not going to talk about that right now. I just thought it was interesting to hear that Kurt Busch seems like 2019 could be his last season in NASCAR. Last thing I want to talk about is kind of what this deal means for Chip Ganassi Racing. By signing Kurt Busch to a 1-year deal, things are shaping up pretty good to possibly put Ross Chastain in that #1 Cup car, possibly as early as 2020. Ross Chastain was kind of the Cinderella story of the Xfinity Series this year, got a few opportunities to run with Chip Ganassi in the Xfinity Series, made the most of them. It's already been announced that he's going to be driving the 42 for Ganassi in the Xfinity Series full-time next year. So with that all in mind, it does sort of feel like Kurt Busch is kind of just keeping the seat warm for Chastain to make the jump in a year and a half. That would be really great to see a driver, once again, kind of earn his ride at NASCAR's top level. In this day and age with sponsorship money meaning as much as it does, you got drivers kind of paying their way into big rides. It's nice to see a guy like Ross Chastain from humble beginnings work his way into a top Cup ride. That would be cool, but it's not confirmed. It's just speculation, but it definitely seems like that's the way things are shaping up for 2020. And yeah, that's mostly all the big news today. Yeah, Kurt Busch, a former Cup Series champion, moving rides, always a top story around the NASCAR world when something like that happens. Thought you guys would like to hear my thoughts on it. Thanks for watching as always. I appreciate it, y'all. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Continue the conversation over there. Those links are down below. Or you can become a sponsor of the show. Like at GWiz of the Stars, Michael Harrison, Mentally Defective, Cameron James, and Tice Moore, and the rest of our amazing Patreon supporters. We've added so many just in the last couple weeks. It's been really amazing. Gonna have to start like making a bigger board here. You too can become a supporter of the show by checking out that top link down below. I really, really appreciate it. It helps me out directly and man, keeps the show growing. Really really appreciate it, you guys. Thanks as always for the support. I also have a P.O. box down in the description. If you want to send me some cool NASCAR stuff, I'll show it off in a video and shout you out here in the near future. I'm kind of collecting things right now. I've gotten a couple things already in the mail, and I'll make a super video hopefully in a couple weeks. But take advantage of that while that's still there for the next little while. Thanks everyone. Thank you so much for the support. YouTube's been a lot of fun the last few days, uploading a lot of videos. Got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. Always a good time. This off season's been a lot of fun, a lot of work, but it's been rewarding so far. So thanks for watching. I will see you guys again. Who knows? Possibly tomorrow. just daily upload. Good Lord. Thanks for watching, y'all. I'll be seeing y'all sooner rather than later. Bye-bye.